Hello and welcome to From Misfit to Mystic. Get ready for my unfiltered, off-the-cuff, raw and real radio show that puts evolutionary leaders from all over the world into the spotlight. Leaders who have taken themselves from feeling unseen, unworthy, and out of place to becoming unapologetic for who they were born to be. I'm your host, Lisa Dawn Lajoie, and we will be digging into the victorious impact that these powerful change makers give to the world with their purpose, how they monetize their magnificence daily, and how they confidently stepped into co-creating the life of their dreams. Now let's dig into today's episode. All right, welcome to From Misfit to Mystic. I'm your host, Lisa Lajoie, and today I have an extra special guest, a dear friend of mine, Tammy Italiano. She is an early childhood educator for over 25 years, specialized in infant development. Her philosophy is the reason she's on the show, apart from me just loving her and thinking she's absolutely phenomenal and incredible as a person who works with children. I also want you to know that I love her deeply. She's a good friend and an incredible human being. And have you on the show, Tammy, my Tammy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, beautiful. I'm super happy to be here.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I created this show was to help people get informed about how to help themselves and other people in the world to enlighten, to become more conscious, to thrive in a new way, and to really give themselves permission to go from maybe being disempowered in some way into becoming powerful beings. And so the reason I wanted you on the show was because I think your philosophy around childhood education is just something that's so needed. And we've talked a lot about it over the years that we've known each other. Mm-hmm. And I wanted us to really dig into the conversation of, what you're passionate about first of all, and also why you do what you do and the reasons behind it. So 25 years is a long time to be, a childhood educator. Mm-hmm. You also own your own daycare now, which is incredible. I want to talk about that also. I want you guys to know, my audience to know, that I call Tammy the Wild Fairy, and you'll probably find out soon why. We have a really good time together, so expect to hear a lot of giggling and laughing. So let's start with this question. What spoke you or inspired you, let's say, to want to work with children?
Yeah, it's something that I think was always a part of me. I think my first babysitting job was at 9 years old, where a neighbor, I would watch her young daughter, Naomi. I still remember her name, Naomi King. So she could go and do shopping, and I would just take care of her for a couple of hours in the afternoon. And I've always had an affinity towards children, and I just wanted to be with them. They're just so light and so pure and so honest and so innocent, and that energy, it's pure magic. It really just, it fills my soul. So it was for me, it was a natural vocation.
Amazing. That's really beautiful. And I know how you are with them because I've seen you,
Mm-hmm.
which is really epic to watch how you just support children and being who they are. So in the 25 years, I understand, like, from knowing you, you've worked in daycares, mm-hmm. and you've learned a lot about the daycare community and what it's like for parents and what it's like for children. I mean, 20 years you were doing that. How long were you in the daycare community, like working for someone else?
Well, I've had my home daycare for 2 years now. Okay. So really,
like for 23
most of my career has been in large centers.
Yeah. And so your observation and why you wanted to create your own, tell me about that. Tell me about what happened to you that brought you to this place.
Well, when I first started, when I was in school, I specialized in infant toddler development, and I took a course, and the textbook from this course introduced me to Magda Gerber and her philosophy of respect and what that means to really respect children and how to foster their development from a place of really recognizing them and accepting them as unique, authentic beings.
Mm.
Um, and it just resonated so deep in my core. It just made so much sense to me.
Yeah.
And over the years, that philosophy is ingrained in my being, and she it has shaped who I am as an educator. It's shaped who I am as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And over the years, when you have a deep rooted philosophy and you're working in mainstream daycare, there's such a huge disconnect.
Mm-hmm.
And I struggled with that so much, because if we are really serving children in their best and highest interest,
Mm.
mainstream daycare, in my opinion, goes against that. So there was a huge disconnect for me. And what I was fostering in my little classroom, which
Mm-hmm.
just that word classroom and early childhood education, they don't go together,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
So what I was trying to foster, I was always going against the grain, because people were just doing what they were taught to do, or what they were without any real foundation, and without the why, the
Mm-hmm.
reason why we
Mm-hmm.
do this job.
Was it like being kind of like in a school system versus a development and a developing children system?
Well, let me explain it to you this way. If we look at infants and toddlers and young children, and I'm like up to the age, in my opinion, of 7, and
Mm.
we really look at how they grow, how
Yeah.
they develop, what they need,
Mm-hmm.
the daycare structure does not foster that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So children are not meant to be taught. Infants are born naturally knowing what they need to do
Mm-hmm.
to grow and to develop. They
Mm-hmm.
are so connected that we so often get in the way of their learning. Not
Mm-hmm.
only do we get in the way of it, but we stop it from happening because we want to teach them.
Well, you know what's so interesting for me and why I adore you and your philosophy and how you are so much is because of the work that I do around helping people understand why they ended up with the issues that they ended up with. And a lot of
Right,
the time, parents innocently will screw their children up because they don't understand that they have an individuation inside themselves. They have a soul inside themselves. They have a reason for being here that has nothing to do with the parents. And the
right,
parent doesn't realize I'm supposed to foster that. You know, parents are doing the best they can. You know, they're trying to figure it out. They don't have sometimes time or understanding or the right teachers themselves to know the philosophy you're talking about. Like a child has there's a little authentic being there that has nothing to do with you, even though it may have come out of your vagina, even
that's
though
right.
your sperm may have been the donor. You know what I mean? This little being has its own ingrained, innate, incredible system trying to go somewhere in this path.
That's right.
So that philosophy is magnificent, and that's part of the why I really wanted to talk with you about it on the show, because I think that's why, you know, my show is called From Misfit to Mystic. And the reason it's called that is because a lot of us feel like misfits, which is a definition of I don't know where I fit in. And that starts at such a young age because
Mhm.
parents don't know how to help their children just be themselves, or
That's right.
the community that the child is reared in, or the school that they went to. Sometimes the parents are great, right? But then they'll get to daycare education and learn something different. They'll get to
Mhm.
school system and then the kids learn, oh, something must be wrong with me, even if the parents are great.
Mhm.
So I want to talk to you about this. My deep question around daycare is if you would have suggestions for change in the
Oh,
field of daycare, Talk to me about that, because I think it's really important for parents to hear what you have to say, because it's the parents that would change the daycare system and support the daycare system. It's parents that would say, I want my child to be reared in this way here. And they would be able to reach out to the government, like officials, like where we're from, like it's very government run daycare. You know what I mean? How can we inspire parents to inspire the places their children are? What can we do? Or if you have other ideas, I'm going down that because that's my thought, but tell me about what you think.
Well, that's a loaded question.
For sure. That's why you're on
Um,
the show. You are Italian after all,
I
Italian
would
people.
change everything.
Epic, epic change.
It's a multi-layered process, Lisa, and everybody has a responsibility in affecting change for the best interests of the children.
Hmm.
In Quebec, the government program that we are mandated to adhere by, the educational program in daycare, is really based on the whole child. The program in and of itself really is magnificent, and they're on the right path.
Mm-hmm.
The disconnect is that I I can't speak for all daycares, but in my
No, of course.
opinion, the majority of daycares, and that might not even be correct, the environment, the physical environment
Yeah.
does not support that.
So,
So, like, the basis understanding is that children learn through play.
right. Right.
Okay?
Right.
So, structure has its place, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
Um, Children need to move. They need to be free to choose what interests them. So the idea of coming in and starting your day as an educator with a plan, although it's great to have a plan,
Yeah.
it's the children who lead their development.
Oh,
And
that's
we
so
need to
interesting.
foster that.
That's
So a
so
lot of the structure where you have 3-year-olds that are sitting in circle and learning their ABCs and their 1, 2, 3s, and you know what? That doesn't benefit them in any way.
mm-hmm.
Being outside, climbing as much as they can climb, running as fast as they can, taking risks,
Mm.
you know, these are the things, you know, art and creativity, but not structured art. Just put
Mm-hmm.
some paints out and let them go,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So from a structural point of view, the physical environment needs to support the philosophies.
Right.
Um, the actual daycares owners need to have mission statements.
Mm-hmm.
They need to know, or they need to stand for what they're actually doing. And to have a cohesive philosophy that every single educator in that structure follows.
Mm-hmm.
Children need consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Already, as it is, there's so much change for them in such a short span of time
Yeah.
that the daycare you start an infant at, let's say an infant starts at 8 months.
Yeah.
Well, at 18 months they go to another class,
Mm-hmm.
and then they go to another room a year later. The first 3 years we want to give children as much consistency and security. We're talking about attachment. We're
Yeah.
talking about, they need, too much change is not healthy,
Yeah, it's so interesting because
right?
yeah, for sure. One of the things that I love about you, because we've had these conversations a lot about children, one of the things I really, really love about you is your compassion for children. And I
It's
think,
all about them.
yeah, for sure. But it's not obvious to me in the world. And, we were just at the women's empowerment retreat that I did.
Oh yeah, it was
And we talked
awesome.
about that with all the women there. And I was teaching about that we don't treat ourselves like we're always children on some level because we're always learning and growing and developing.
That's
And
right.
and everything you're saying, I was getting shivers listening to you, because it's exactly what we were talking about. Whether you're 40 or 7 or 3, you still need to take risks. You still need security. You still need all the things you're talking about. But if you don't have it when you're a child,
Hmm.
how are you naturally learning to develop yourself? You're following someone else's rules and regulations. You
And
don't have
how are you modeling it for your children as
that
parents?
too. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right?
for sure. Yeah, it always leads, it drips back into the funnel,
For
one way
sure.
or the other. Yeah, that's so interesting. So you would recommend, like, if we said, okay, so what do we recommend? If we're suggesting things to maybe daycares or educators or educational systems, what would you say? Here's some couple of easy things that you could start to implement. So first, you said create a mission statement that the people that are hired also feel aligned with. Teach them what you want them to do, train them, get them educated. I understand,
Professional
like, it's
development.
your people. Okay, that makes sense. Don't make the children sit down like all the time. Help them learn in a natural environment also, right? Like, I get you have to introduce children to socialization and maybe some of the structure, but like, right, do it at the right time, maybe.
But that happens
It
naturally.
happens naturally. Okay,
Socialization happens naturally,
naturally. Okay, great.
right?
Yeah,
Structure, in my daycare, there's structure to my day. But
of
within that
course.
structure, the children are free
Yes.
to do what they want, to manipulate objects how they want.
Yeah.
If I have one child that wants the easel outside to paint,
Hmm.
while another one is building blocks inside, my
Yeah.
environment is set up to be able to have both those children secure and safe under supervision
Right.
constantly,
Yeah.
without me having to say, oh well, you can't go inside because most of the children are outside,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
even from an emotional perspective, some kids, we're all the same, and some children just want to go and be by themselves for a little bit,
Mhm.
and that needs to be fostered too and respected.
Yeah. That's so
And
nice.
not saying no because it doesn't work for me or it's too much for me to be able to supervise both. And no, we have to find a way to make this work,
Yeah. Well, it's
right?
not, this is the thing with you, that I think a lot of people don't realize. They don't realize that the statement you just made, like, if I'm choosing to support the children, then I'm going to make it work. Because that's what I heard you say, right?
Yeah,
If I'm choosing to really honor who they are with that integrity and that authenticity,
that's
then
right.
I'm going to make it work for them. I'm good with having to go inside and outside to make sure my kids are okay, to make sure
That's right.
everything's well, to make sure that they're moving through whatever they're doing safely and securely. Like, I mean, just the intention alone that you made makes you do whatever you have to do for them.
That's
And
right.
that's it. You're not even in the equation based on what you've just expressed. Like, I'm not in the equation. My structure is because I have to run a daycare and have to make sure my kids get what they need from whatever structural standpoint. But in the structure, I allow them to discover themselves.
That's
You know
right.
what I mean? And don't we need that at any age though? Like, this is what's so exciting about this conversation we're
Yeah.
having, which I didn't know where it was going to go, right? You never know.
Yeah. You never know.
I'm like, we just went through this yesterday, talking about this over the weekend with women, adult women of all different ages, and how it doesn't matter. But I look at them and I think they didn't have that too. They don't have that philosophy. So maybe we could take you, wild fairy, and put you in the scheme of adults too, and teach them how to.
I shall fly where I need to fly. But
So good. What
let
a
me take
great.
that one step further.
Yeah.
And I honestly don't remember. I mean, everything I am is because of Magda Gerber and her philosophy, and everything I've learned through putting that philosophy into practice. And I don't know if it was in one of my classes or a teacher that I had, but the question is, so often, and you're going to relate to this as adults with the women and all the people, your clients you work with, but we are so quick to say no
Yeah.
for everything.
Yeah.
No, don't do this. No, don't do that. No, you can't do this. No, I can't do that. No, no, no,
Mm-hmm.
no, no, no.
Mm-hmm.
But when you just pause and you take a second to ask yourself, is it just as easy to say yes?
Mm-hmm.
And with a room full of 8 children, I only have, my capacity is 6, but for the most of my career, it was 8 children at
Yeah,
a given
that's a home
time.
daycare limitation
That's right.
from, okay, but
That's right.
you're talking about a larger
Right. For eight,
Okay.
10 kids,
Yeah.
honestly, if you're coming at it from the right perspective, 9 times out of 10, it's just as easy to say yes. And by saying yes, you're stepping out of the way and you're allowing space for these children to thrive. And that's the whole point.
Mm-hmm.
So often, even for me, 25 years later, I find myself saying, no, no, but you have to catch yourself and you have to ask, can I say yes? Is it just as
Yeah.
easy to say yes?
Yeah.
And why am I saying no?
Mm-hmm.
So if it's a question of security, okay, can I change the environment quick to allow for better security and safety so that I can say yes,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's so interesting and such a such a rich comment. Because the truth is that, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? If we never check in with our no and why it's there, then we can never understand what might be limiting us on the inside. That's
And a
so.
lot of times, unfortunately, I hate to say it, but a lot of times it's because we as educators or parents don't want to be inconvenienced, or we just want to, we want things to be smooth and it's easier to say no. And, oh, well, they're going to find something else to do. They're kids. Of course, they're going to find something else to do. They're naturally driven to seek out problems and to figure out their world. But
Mm,
we're limiting, we're limiting that process by saying no.
mm-hmm. 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 It brought up a question and I'm trying to remember. I just popped into my head, like, because the thing I know from working with people is when, and even my own experience,
Mhm,
growing up in an environment where I became confused about my identity because no one was reflecting or giving me space to just have one,
mhm,
or I had no reflection, like I had no interaction with people. I had no one looking at me like a human being.
mhm.
Like, oh, you're a child, and so my perception of you is, you know, you're a little kid and you're gonna, I hope you turn out good, you know like this was kind of what I was around, you're just like something I have to deal with.
Yeah, it's a crapshoot.
Yeah, versus like my implication in your life is going to help you flower into the abundant being you're meant to be in this world,
Mm,
or my negative implication in your life is going to fuck you up for the rest of it.
that's right.
You're going to have to unravel that by yourself. And I think parents and anybody working with children have a responsibility to understand the difference and how that their influence is huge in a child's life. Huge. You know
It's
what I mean? And
everything.
being conscious of that simple understanding that you are the reflection of the child's experience. So when you act like, well, you figure it out and good luck, you know what I mean? I'll try to help you, but I don't know how good I'm going to do, versus let me help you flower. Let me show you guideline. Let me discover your talents and your gifts. Let me, one of the questions that came up in the empowerment weekend, which is amazing, is one of the women brought up this thing, well, how do I help my kid with comparinitis? You know what I mean? That's happening at the schools already. And I mean, my answer, and I want your answer also, my answer to her was, because she was talking about the child, like her daughter was feeling like this weight identity problem, like body image problem, because she's comparing and people are speaking to her and they're judging her, and that, like she's not different than anybody else. She's just her. But everybody in this, like kids are already learning at such a young age, oh, you should be like me, or you should be like this, or you should be like that because a magazine said so, or because the internet said no. So she was asking how to help her kid be strong, and I was saying, well, for me the most important thing is tell the truth. And the truth is your body's built a certain way. You have flavors to you and gifts inside you that are different than other people's, and they are different than yours as well, and they're one is just as beautiful as the other, and to teach the miraculous ability the body has and the different stages of development as a woman, so that young person can understand the truth versus letting them just figure it out for themselves, because what they're figuring out is copy paste what other people are doing. So if you're if the kids are in an environment where everybody's copying and pasting, then that's what they're going to follow, versus being a parent teaching them, like what you're doing with those children, no matter what the parents are doing, okay, is infusing inside the child those philosophies of you're really perfect the way you are.
Mm-hmm.
So no matter what happens, no matter what the parents teach, this is what I mean by, because I learned some of the stuff that I learned, not just from my parents, but it was the after my parents, the people in the education system that just didn't know what to do with me, or they were tired, or they didn't want to implicate themselves, or they didn't know how to stand up to the parent and say, like, something's going on with your kid. Like, there's simple things we can do to just help our children understand the truth, which is you are miraculous as you are. You are an identity on your own. You know what I mean? So what's your opinion of what parents can do?
Parents aren't going to like what I have to say.
That's all right. I mean, I think parents need to wake
Okay,
up too. We all have to grow.
but that's exactly it. So, there's not a mom out there that doesn't want her daughter to grow up with body images and self-esteem issues. And no woman wants that for her daughter, because we've all been there. We all know what it's like.
Yep.
The most important for me, it starts with the parents' self-awareness and their consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
We pass things down to children. We are most of the time unaware that our issues are being passed on to our children.
Mm-hmm.
So if, as a mother, you've struggled with body issues, you've struggled with insecurities, with fears, with identity, it's because you weren't shown and you weren't given the opportunities that we're talking about now that we want to give to children.
Right.
So
And
we need to be
so,
honest with ourselves, and we
yes.
need to share that honesty with children.
So I have a question for you, because I know you have 25 years of experience dealing with parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a huge amount of experience. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
really do. And it's very rare I bump into someone in life who has been, you know, involved with parents for that long, and different parents, and some for 5 years, some for 8 years, whatever, some for 2 years. I mean, that's a lot of parents. It's eight to
Mm-hmm.
10 kids in a class that you're working with. That's a lot of parents every season, you know what I mean, every year for 25 years. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, so I want to know where parents lose their permission, and what you would like permission to just embrace their children, like, and be cool with their children the way they are. Like, where did the breakdown happen for them?
I think it's authenticity. I don't think parents have the permission to just be themselves. I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of parents want to be more and better for their children.
Yes.
And in doing so, they're trying to be something that they're not. And
Mm-hmm.
let me tell all of your audience, the most important truth is that children feel and interpret energy
Mm-hmm.
more than anything else.
Yeah, know it too.
And they know the difference between what they're feeling energetically
Mm-hmm.
and what they're seeing with their eyes.
Mm.
And children have an innate ability to call bullshit on anybody's inauthenticity.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I think the most important thing, it doesn't matter if you're not a morning person. If you're not a morning person, don't pretend to be all chipper and sweet for your children. That is who you are. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to tell all parents, mothers, fathers, just be who you are. You
Mm-hmm.
don't have, do the best you can,
Mm-hmm.
but be who you are, because I promise you, if you are present for your children, if you are working on being the best version of yourself at any given moment, and if you're honest with your children about that process, and you allow that process to become an open, ongoing dialogue with your children,
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna love you no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives them permission to be themselves. It gives them permission to make mistakes. It gives them permission to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
And it gives them a safe place to land when shit doesn't work out.
Right? That's amazing. Honestly. And what you're saying is so valid. Like I'm just having memories of growing up in my childhood. It's so funny. And I remember. And I tell you right now, I would have rather my mother told me I'm fucked up. I had a nervous breakdown. She tried
Absolutely.
to figure out what's wrong with me, that she won't come out of her room, and she's locked in the freaking room with everything closed, and she's smoking cigarettes. And if I make a noise in the kitchen, it sounds like an apocalyptic scream, like some kind of, like I did the worst thing in the world. I mean, my mother was in a nervous breakdown.
Mm,
Nobody said anything. I was like 6 years old. I had to figure it out.
yeah.
I came home, I shut the cupboard door. My mother would literally she'd scream at the top of her lungs not to make noise. I closed the cupboard door. It fucked me up completely
Oh, yeah.
because I wasn't told mommy wasn't okay. I wasn't told. I had to figure that out for myself.
That's right.
Of course, at that age, 5, 6 years old, who did I blame? I blame myself, because
For
right, the
sure.
developmental
You
stage of
internalize it. Yeah.
right. Tell me about that, because I talk about this a lot. I think at 5, 6 years old, my understanding, and I'm not a childhood professional, but I do understand from we develop things at ages, and 5, 6 years old, we need identification from outside.
Well, during the weekend, you talked a lot about personal responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is so relevant in parenthood. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to give you an alarming fact, and it's one of my favorite facts to share with people.
Yep.
80% of a child's self-concept, 80%
Yep.
is developed by the age of 3.
Amazing. It's incredible.
There's a lot of room for damage that we have got to be mindful of.
Yeah.
And what that means is that parents need to get their shit together.
Mm-hmm.
Parents need to be aware of their triggers,
Mm-hmm.
aware of where they're struggling. And it's not to say there isn't anything wrong with triggers and struggling,
Right.
but they need to separate that from their children.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to take ownership.
Mm-hmm.
And they need to make sure that they are being honest and open with their children, so that their children learn from a very young age that it has nothing to do with them.
Right. That's the
And
big.
that they are pure and beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
And just because mom or dad is having a hard time with something, it doesn't mean that the child is too. It doesn't get imprinted onto them.
For sure. And I think that's so important, because a lot of parents, like you said, they're great people, but they think
Beautiful
they should
people.
show the child the truth. They're afraid, but they don't realize the child's trying to figure out what's wrong.
Well, there's a way to do it. It's we have to be careful with this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
because we cannot put our adult shit on young children.
Right.
They can't handle that. It's
Of
not
course.
their responsibility. We don't have to tell them, well, mommy's depressed right now and I need to sleep for like 6 hours.
Yep.
It's going to be okay.
Of course.
Right?
Like responsibility with the truth.
Well, that's it. And
Yeah.
we don't want we never want a child to feel responsible
Of course.
for our weaknesses, our shortcomings,
Yeah.
our struggles.
Yep.
So, although you want to be honest with it, it's more important that you're honest with it within yourself. And this brings me to the next point of self care.
Right. But
And
also,
let
like, quick question, to get
mm,
quick interjection about that. So I know for me, like, I definitely would have loved my mom to just tell me, based, of course, I think the key is based on the age of your child. Like, your child can't handle adult concepts of depression or sadness or
no,
breakdown or difficulty. They can understand, oh, mommy's just having a bad day.
yes,
They can understand those, so you want to respectfully understand their age, and but you can still share the truth. Oh, mommy will be okay in a couple of minutes, or daddy will be okay in a couple of minutes, just a little frustrated, and
yeah.
show them it's okay to have their emotions or whatever.
Mommy needs a little bit of time to herself,
Right. Okay. So
right?
simple statements of truth are,
Yeah,
they're okay.
yeah,
Or to just say, it's not about, it's nothing's wrong with you, honey. Everything's okay. Or like, everything's okay. You're fine. Keep playing, just to approve of the experience. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
yes, exactly. And like,
Yeah.
because they know something's not okay
Yeah, exactly.
and they
That's what
don't
I was thinking.
understand it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So the second you just acknowledge it, then they feel safe again.
Right.
Because
Love
they
it.
don't, when they don't understand something, it creates anxiety, it creates nervousness, it creates
Yes.
misbehavior, it creates tension, it creates acting out, right? Because
Yeah.
they don't understand what they're seeing versus what they're feeling, and they don't understand the energy. And if you just say, mom feels a little bit sad right now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's important to dialogue emotion with children.
Mm-hmm.
We need to give them permission and hold space for them to feel whatever it is they're feeling.
For sure. And also, like, a parent has, or would probably serve the child at a higher level, just with that kind of self-approval and self-care, like
That's right.
teaching their child, like, they don't have to fix it. It's not their responsibility, and mommy's going to be okay, or daddy's going to be okay in a bit. Just give them a little space. You know
That's
what I
right.
mean? And just, like, you know, that serves the child's
But in,
awakenings and
in doing
development. And
so, you are teaching the child
mhm.
a responsible way
Yeah,
of navigating emotion
for
by
sure.
being honest with ourselves
Yeah.
and honest with where we're at any given point in the day.
Yeah.
When there are bigger emotions, more difficult emotions to navigate,
Mm-hmm.
we need to model for our children how to do that responsibly with love and self love and compassion and nurturance. We want to give those tools to our children. And the
Mm.
only way to do that is by modeling it as parents.
For sure. And also, like, from what I'm understanding, which this just, like, this is an impeccable conversation for me, because adults are exactly the same.
They are.
I do this work, and I've been doing transformation work for 15 years. And
Mm-hmm.
all people who I've seen need exactly the same thing. And in the space of transformation, that's what I'm creating all the time: listening, letting them know where they're at's okay. Like, letting them just be where they are, like, providing that good energy space. You know what I mean? It's incredible. And also, like, my other point that came up from listening to you is, it helps kids with their inner guidance system, because they
Oh, yes.
energetically know something's not right. And if you tell them everything's okay, then they get confused about their own energy
Absolutely.
or their own energy understanding, their own inner guidance, their own intuition, their own empathy says, but daddy, I know you're not okay. Like, I feel it.
Their
And
instincts
don't know
and
how to dialogue that when they're little. And so that's a beautiful thing too, is you're helping them know that what they're experiencing is true. And but it's okay, it's not yours. Because that's one of the big things that I know I talk about for people. We pick up energy, and we don't know how to separate from one person to another sometimes, because of the lessons we learn as children. You know what I mean? We learn to be sponges. We learn that our system may not be telling us the truth, even though it is, because parents are trying so hard to hide, because they think what hiding is going to protect the child. You know what I
Yes.
mean? But it's not necessarily a true belief or a true way to be. It doesn't really maybe serve the greater good for the parent, you know? They just
And by
don't know.
doing so, yeah, but by doing so, like these are learning opportunities.
Yeah.
They are learning opportunities for everyone involved,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So we don't want to rescue them. We don't want to constantly protect them from, you know, difficult things.
Mm-hmm.
We want to show them how to navigate that.
Right.
And we want to give them the tools to successfully navigate that throughout the lifespan. What we want to do is give them life skills.
Right. Do you recommend anything, like, just want to, I'm going to change gears in a minute, and I want to really support parents, because like, I know it's really hard for parents in this day and age. Like, they have a
It's
long
harder than it's ever been.
lost ever. Like, they don't have time. The kids are like, and it's no one's fault. It's just the system
Nope.
of the world is so freaking different. You
Yeah,
know what
and
I mean?
we can judge it as much as we want, but it
I
at the end of the
wouldn't.
day, it's just it's hard. It's
I
hard.
think so too. I really do. And I think parents are most of the time just doing the best they can. But I
Yeah,
want to support them. And I want
yeah.
also for them to know it's not their fault. It's just, it doesn't take a lot for them to learn to be more empowered, even with what they're trying to accomplish with their children. You know,
Hmm.
that's why this conversation is so important to me, because what they teach their children. I mean, listen, I sat in a room with 37 women, and one of the greatest issues that came up was identity
Yes.
and worth. You know,
Yes.
that was, and that came, and a lot of us talked. I mean, we talked a lot. I taught a lot about that and where it comes from. And, you know, helping parents help their children will help them help themselves to, it's like almost like a re-education for themselves and what they may not have had as children, because they're learning to do it for their child. It becomes a benefit and a gift to them too, because
That's
they
right. It's
realize,
full
oh, I can
circle.
treat myself the same way. Right.
Well, I think it starts with the parents in that
Yeah.
I think parents need to learn how to take care of themselves
It's
and
so
how to
interesting.
love themselves. And
Right.
that's why like the weekend, the empowerment, the women's empowerment retreat was beautiful. And I spoke to a lot of moms over
Yes.
the course of the weekend.
Yeah.
And I really think that parents need so much support,
They
and they need
do.
love, and they need acceptance, because what they do, you know, all the women were saying, I don't know how you do it, it's the hardest job ever. But in
Yeah.
my opinion, parenthood is an infinitely harder job.
Right.
And you know, we come a lot of parents come into parenthood with their own issues, with their own childhoods, with their own difficulties that, you know, they're trying to navigate through. And I think when parents give themselves permission to approach this stage in their life as a brand new learning for themselves, for their children, it takes the pressure off,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Yeah. I totally
Parents
understand that.
struggle with working. Um, their children are in daycare. Parents have guilt around having to leave their children in daycare because they need to go to work. Parents have, they're exhausted. Exhaustion, the time that they have is minimal. And the quality time that they do have for children is interrupted with the mundane tasks of everyday life:
Mm-hmm.
cooking supper, doing the dishes, taking bath, brushing teeth,
Yep.
right? And nobody's learning or allowing themselves or giving anybody permission to just chill the fuck out,
I
right?
have a couple of questions that I want
Okay.
my listeners to hear. Okay.
Yeah.
There's two things. First of all, I'm going to talk about what you're up to later because I think that people need to know. I
Yes.
want to help parents know how to help themselves as well.
Right.
But do you have, first of all, any books that you recommend just for them
Oh,
to start with?
um, it's a little dated, but I recommend any book by Magda Gerber.
Okay.
Okay. A lot of her books are on Amazon. The first one I would start with is Dear Parent.
Awesome. Beautiful.
Dear Parent is, the handbook that all parents wish their children came with?
Yes.
That's the handbook.
Awesome.
Right.
Perfect.
The
Is there
other one
another
is,
one?
well, the book that you recommended to me, which was it's the Dr. Shfali, The Conscious Parent.
Yeah, I love her.
That is, it's absolutely beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
She's well known. Her name is Janet Lansbury.
Okay.
Janet Lansbury had the luxury, she's a mother of 3. She had the luxury of being mentored by Magda Gerber.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And she has 2 books. No Bad Kids is
Mm-hmm.
one of them.
Love it.
Highly recommended.
I love it.
And it shows parents, because the misconception with respectful parenting and conscious parenting and respectful caregiving, the biggest misconception is that it's passive, and that by being respectful and conscious and holding space for children as unique individuals, that means that we give them free rein to do whatever they want. And that is the farthest thing from the truth.
Awesome.
Because what young children really need to
Mm-hmm.
feel safe, to
Mm-hmm.
feel trust and confidence,
Mm-hmm.
is limits and boundaries,
Mm-hmm.
and knowing that the parents are in control of holding that boundary no matter what the child is experiencing.
Mm-hmm.
So Janet Lansbury talks a lot about that, because discipline, respectful discipline is teaching. It's
Mm-hmm.
not punishment. So through discipline, these are learning opportunities. And Janet Lansbury, she articulates that absolutely beautifully.
That's awesome, because I think it's really easy for a parent to just listen to an audible in the car,
For
and
sure.
let themselves know that they're not alone and
Oh,
that
yeah.
there's support for them, because it's really important. Because I think a lot of parents just don't know what to do, and they feel ashamed because they're not, their kid is turning out this way or that way.
Yeah.
And they don't know what to do. They didn't have that experience of knowing, how to be the best that they can be either, because of their raising or whatever information they don't have. So that's why I asked. The other thing I wanted to know, which I think is really important, is how can parents help the places where their children are? How can the parents help the daycares? You know what I mean? So let's say, because I think a parent has a huge influence, you tell me if this is correct or not, by asking, or even, like, let's say a parent reads one of these books as an example and thinks this is like a really amazing book, but understands that that's not the philosophy of their daycare, but has the person who owns the daycare they're good friends with, and they say, I really think you might want to read this book to help you even provide a better environment for the kids, or for my kid, or I started reading this book. Can parents infuse or inject in some way supporting a shift in daycares?
I think they absolutely have to try.
Okay.
I don't have a definite answer,
Of course.
because
Of
it
course.
depends on what attitude they're met with. There are daycare owners
Yep.
that are like me, that go into the business really wanting to foster the development of all children, and
Yeah.
creating the space and the education and the energy and the mindset to do that, and to build a team of women that are really dedicated to that.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I think it starts by having simple conversations like this.
Do you find that there's not very many men in daycares?
It breaks my heart.
Yeah.
I have to give props to dads. Dads are awesome.
Yeah.
Dads are incredible.
Yep.
And dads play such an important role in the development of the children.
Right.
The male energy is just, it's so different from our energy as women, where, we're focused on teaching and disciplining and guiding and facilitating our children to become conscious, respectful members of society. And the dads, well, not all, I can't speak for all dads, but the male energy is a little bit lighter. It's a little bit more fun. It's a little bit more lax. And the children, sometimes that comes from the mom, and the discipline comes from the dad. You know, it can go either way. But in 25 years, I have only had the pleasure of working with a male once.
Wow.
And let me tell you, the children flocked to him.
Mm.
None of us, and we were, I think we were full time, we were 12 women.
Yep.
And the second he showed up and he was starting his shift, none of us existed.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was so beautiful. And I think,
So
you know,
important.
there's a lot of stigma, and we have to bring that to light, and we need to talk about those stigmas very honestly and openly.
Yep.
But, you know, the world is filled with amazing dads,
Yeah.
uncles, brothers, friends of families
Mm.
that have so much to offer in the field, right? So I would love to see more men in the field.
Definitely. That's why I was asking, because I understood when you said women. I'm like, oh, that must mean there's not a lot of men in the
No.
experience. You know what I mean? So that's really interesting for sure. Very interesting. Yep. All right. So let me ask you another question about what you're up to today. Tell me about how you went from being in the daycare community to opening your own. Because you're like a daycare entrepreneur. So you're a
Well,
daycarepreneur. So I want to know about that experience a little bit, and you know how you're
my
finding it.
my mission is to raise the standard of quality care in a very observable, tangible way. Um, so for me, what happened was I I was in an environment where the children were not being served, and I couldn't handle that. And it made me very angry in my heart. Like, my heart was angry and I was sad, and um, I ended up fighting with everybody, you
Mm-hmm.
know, because I just wanted them to see how much better we could be and how much more we can do. And it didn't matter that our daycare was owned by somebody else who just saw it as a business. We could affect change within our space. But, you know, you can't force people to do things. And that was a big learning opportunity for me. And I got to a point where I said, well, the only way it's going to happen is if I do it on my own, and see, you know, see where it can go. Like, I believe in this and I know this is the way it should be done. And let me put that into practice. Let me remove myself and put myself in a situation where I can make all the decisions, and I can try different things out and see what works and what doesn't work, and, you know, where the hiccups are. And uh, so that's what pushed me to open up my home daycare. And it's working. It's beautiful. Um, I think the home daycare is a stepping stone, because I'd like to take things to a different level.
Tell us about that.
Well, I have so many things on my plate.
Jared, do it. Tell us.
There's so many things. Okay, so within this RIE philosophy, RIE is Magda Gerber's philosophy. It's pronounced RIE. RIE is an acronym for Resources for Infant Educarers. Educarers is is a term coined by Magda Gerber, because essentially it's not educating, it's we are caring for the children.
Which
And
I love. That's amazing.
there's a 3-step process to becoming a RY associate.
Okay.
And last year I had the opportunity to do my first level certification. And the first level certification is in theory and observation. Observation is a very important uh, uh, component of this philosophy, because if we don't observe, take the time to really observe and get to know each child, then we don't know how to meet their needs, right? So I did the first level certification, which allows me to now give infant toddler parent classes. And that's something that I really am passionate about. I want to empower every parent out there. It
Mm-hmm.
doesn't matter what they're going through. It doesn't matter what their background is. It doesn't matter where they are in this parenting journey.
Yeah.
You know, this is something that can be learned and practiced, and it's a process like anything else, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So I would like to start giving parent infant classes. I would like to do workshops for parents. I would like to maybe do, I don't know, I think of parents and, some just getting out of the house and doing like a retreat like you did, the women's empowerment retreat, if I can, because a big component of the philosophy too is it preaches self-care for parents. You need to take care of yourself and you can't feel guilty about that. It's so important. And then the big dream is to have an infant toddler center that is RY inspired,
Wow. That's amazing.
where
Call it
every
the
single,
Wild Fairy Center.
you know what, it's funny because that's exactly what I was trying to think of, a French name, and Faye is a perfect, it's perfect, and it's going to be something like that. I think it's going to be called Fairyland.
So this is a thing. So the reason I asked you to claim it, because I want you to aim it. And when
Yes,
you say it
buddy,
on a
thank
radio
you.
show, it means you're going to do it.
That's right.
So I know you're sincere. I mean, you're talking like, you're hoping, but I think you're already going to plan on doing it from what I
Well,
understand. And this, you're in the
my
stages now of making sure that you're on the move to creating what, you know,
well,
and using your superpower as a child educator in the world. You know what I mean? And I think it's important because the truth is, like, putting you on the show, that's part of the reason is there's two things I really wanted to do: give parents permission to understand, like, it's not their fault, and help them learn from your experience. I mean, 25 years of experience of dealing with parents and knowing what they need and what they're not getting, and also children, and just watching, because you can see, I mean, that's a lot of experience, whether you're certified or not. It has nothing to do with it. You have a lot of experience, girl.
well, I'm certified too, but
You know what I mean? And
yeah.
you're certified too. So, I mean, it's important to you. I know that's why you are, you take your profession seriously. And that's why you said, no, I want to be certified in what I believe in, so that people can trust that I've learned these philosophies, and that, they know that you've done what you've had to do on your end to be that professional and live at that higher level of, you know, of education in itself, and supporting parents and children in the best way. So, I know you're going to do the other levels, and I know who you are, and you're going to keep rising. But I also know that we're talking, and we've been talking, and you've been talking about, starting the process of doing the workshops and the teaching and things like that. So, I'm expecting something soon.
Of course you are.
I'm expecting some kind of something soon.
Your
And
time is now.
so I'm looking at the fall. Is that correct? That you're going to do something soon, whether it's online or live in Montreal?
Apparently it's the fall. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So
I'm
I
gonna
love how I
You know how I
interject into my
roll, right?
show.
I just, I get an idea and then I just kind of make it happen, right?
For sure. For
With
sure.
your love and guidance and support too. We
Well,
can't.
it's so important, and I really, you know, it's kind of cool to have this conversation and just watch you so willingly say, yeah, let's do it. You
Well, I
really
watch
need to.
you so effortlessly
Hmm.
work so hard at helping individual people grow and rise, and you do it with such love and compassion, and I feel a responsibility to do that specifically for parents.
Well, the thing is,
You
people
know,
don't know what they don't know.
that's right.
You know, it's like when you do know and you have 25 years under your belt, like I have 25 years of transformation and educating myself and all kinds of, I mean, it's not, we're not doing a service by hiding the gifts we have
That's
and not
right.
supporting other people who just don't know what they don't know.
Yes,
I mean, and they feel terrible about things that they're doing because they don't know what they don't know. And so it's the duty that you have to help
that's right.
children, you know, and I think it's needed. And I
Well,
think
it's
it's not just
funny.
a duty, it's your heart's passion and
It
your
really
soul's
is.
desire. So, I mean, you can't go wrong with saying, yeah, this is what I'm going to do.
I
This,
really think it's my purpose,
100%.
And at the women's
100%.
retreat, my I am statement was
Mm-hmm.
reflective of my thought process around this entire conversation and it being
Wonderful.
time for me to share. And it was, I am responsible.
Yeah.
I'm responsible for the knowledge that I have, and I
Yes.
am responsible for sharing it with anybody who needs it, and to do it with love and compassion and
Mm.
support. And that's really what I want to do.
Yeah. And that's really gorgeous and beautiful, honestly. Um, I love this conversation. To me, this is just very, very powerful and beautiful.
Mm,
Really, really so. So
it's
I want to
important.
kind of close out with a couple of things. I want you to talk to parents directly and tell them what you really want them to know.
You're going to fuck up a lot. And you know what?
Oh, that's amazing.
That's okay.
Wow. That's
That's
brilliant.
okay.
That's brilliant.
So remove that pressure to be perfect, to
Yeah.
be everything, and let yourself fuck up and just acknowledge it in the moment and
Mm-hmm.
acknowledge it to your babies
Mm-hmm.
and reconnect and show them, tell them that, you know what, I didn't have to raise my voice in that moment. And I'm going to try harder. Not, I promise never to do it again because that's
Right.
bullshit.
Yes.
But I'm aware of it and I'm going to try harder.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. We are
Mm-hmm.
all human beings. You are not meant to be everything and anything and a complete perfect being just because you happen to be a mom or a dad.
Mm-hmm.
And be authentic. Just be who you are. Accept yourself fully for all that you are, the good, the bad, the negative, the positive, because by doing so, you give your children permission to accept themselves wholly. So
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about identity and insecurity and self-concept, they feel safe and loved and accepted for all of them, for who they are as a whole person.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the biggest gift that we can give ourselves, our children, each other.
Mm-hmm. Music to my
And
ears.
I give you all permission to just be yourself.
That's beautiful.
And anybody who wants to judge it, that's their prerogative. But you know what? No one's judging you here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Wow, this has been an incredible conversation.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for giving me a platform to share my heart
Absolutely. And your experience and
and
your
my
impeccable
experience.
knowledge and your beautiful compassion for parents and children. Because this is why I, you know, really adore you so much is you don't just pick a side. You understand deeply like that it's, you know, that we have to be connected in a bigger fashion and parents need as much as children do.
It's macro micro. If we're
Yeah.
looking, if we're looking at a child or child development from an individual whole perspective,
Mm-hmm.
that grows and grow. Like it goes from looking at the child that way to looking at ourselves that way, to looking at the family unit that way,
course.
to looking at the village that way, to
Of
looking
course.
at,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it. It's so
Yeah.
expansive.
Yeah, for sure. And you know, are a trailblazer. And this is like definitely my heart's desire for you, is that you trailblaze some of it by just this conversation to be the beginning point, and then what you're going to do in the fall, which you've just committed to.
Publicly. You know, sometimes
No,
that's like,
probably you
you
can't
know,
commit on a radio show and not do it.
no,
Okay. So
exactly.
the expectations there. So no. So I want to know, how can people find you? Is there, you know, if somebody wants to just talk to you, have a conversation, I know you do private
Well,
consultations
I
to
do
help
private
parents.
consultations.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They can reach me, they can find me on Facebook.
Yeah.
I have a daycare page. It's called Les Petits Bio,
Mm-hmm.
uh, BIO.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I will put the links in this episode as well, so you'll be able to find it there.
they
Is
can
there
find my
other ways?
personal page on Facebook, Tammy
Okay.
Italiano.
Okay.
They can reach me at 579-638-6846.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, those are the best ways to connect with me.
Okay. Because I think it's important that people can just know that if they need a little bit of support and help, that, yeah, I know you do the consultations, there's going to be workshops and stuff coming in September. But, you know,
Yes.
I think after people listen to this, they might really feel compelled to just get a little bit more deeper understanding, you know what I mean, of how
and
they can do it.
and I want parents to know that although this philosophy is really it's based on children that are 0 to 3.
Yeah.
It works at any age.
Well,
And
it
it doesn't
works
matter how old their children are. We can start
well.
this philosophy of respect. We can take ownership. We can change the game. Just because you've been doing something for 7 years, it doesn't mean that you can't try something new
Wow. That's
at any
powerful.
stage,
That's very powerful.
right?
Because that's part of it too, is parents often feel like they don't have that hope. So that was an awesome way to end this conversation,
Mm,
to say you can start at any age and it will make a difference. And the truth
absolutely.
is, in this conversation we've been talking about that you can learn
Mhm.
and grow anytime.
Anytime.
You know what I mean? Anytime. I mean, there
Yep.
was women like in the retreat, all different ages, each
Yes.
transforming uniquely. So that gives me a lot of hope, you know, for the work you're doing and the work I'm doing, that we can really help, you know, make a difference. So
That's the point.
thank you for being on the show, my
Thank
love.
you for
It's been,
having me, darling.
I'm wondering if you're Italian though, Italiano, but anyways, just
I'm Polish.
thank you.
I love
Thank
you.
you everyone for listening. I love you
Thank you.
too. And I'll see you on the next episode, family. Bye.
Bye.